You think you know the American West? Forget everything you saw on the postcards. The real Montana starts where the roads end and vertical rock walls run straight up into the clouds. Up here, among the glaciers and the deep timber, there is a hidden drama going on that almost nobody sees. A brutal, primeval, unbelievably beautiful fight for life. Who really rules this hard country where one wrong step on a cliff means death? Let's find out. When people talk about Montana, the usual pictures come to mind. Wheat fields, cattle ranches, big empty highways. But if you look at the map through the eyes of a biologist, a completely different picture opens up. This is a unique piece of ground, wedged up against the spine of the continent, cut in half by the massive wall of the Northern Rockies. You know what the main thing about the wildlife here is? The incredible contrasts. You can stand in humid river bottom forest, thick with cottonwood and willow, where the air is heavy, and a couple of hours later, you are in the frozen hell of the high country, where only the toughest survive. Here, nature ran a grand evolutionary experiment. The climate zones change every few hundred feet you climb. Because of the isolation these mountains create, Montana built its own world of animals, one you will not find anywhere else. And believe me, their character was forged in very hard conditions. Let's be honest, a Rocky Mountain winter up high is not a soft fairy tale. It is a brutal test. Avalanches, a wind that knocks you off your feet, a critical shortage of food. But the local wildlife learned to use this terrain to its advantage. Where a person without climbing gear would die in the first 10 minutes, a mountain goat feels perfectly safe, and a huge bull elk pushing through the timber shows a grace that makes it look like it weighs 30 pounds instead of 700. The mountains write the rules here. The wildlife of Montana is not just a list of species. It is a single, finely tuned machine, and every predator knows its place, while the plant eaters developed unique skills of camouflage and movement. Enormous grizzly bears, which have their own particular mountain temperament here, share the ground with wolf packs, while high above, golden eagles wheel and hunt among the sheer cliffs. And this whole system runs by laws that have not changed in thousands of years. It is a world where weakness is not forgiven, and strength is measured by the ability to survive one more winter on a vertical wall.
If somebody asked me which animal best symbolizes the wildlife of Montana, I would name the mountain goat without hesitation. This is not just a wild goat with a shaggy white coat. It is an absolute masterpiece of mountain evolution. They live at heights where the air gets thin and the temperature falls below freezing even in summer. How do they survive up there? It is all in the build of their hooves. Look at these sheer faces. It seems like it would be impossible to get a grip, but a goat's hoof is built in a unique way. Hard edges and a soft rubbery pad in the center. They work like the best climbing boots with sticky rubber soles. A goat can jump at a nearly smooth wall at an 80-degree angle, lock its body onto a ledge a couple of inches wide, and calmly look down at you. Right alongside them, often sharing the same hard slopes, live the bighorn sheep.
They are heavier, and instead of leaping like the goats, they rely on power and balance. And the rams carry those huge curling horns that can weigh 30 pounds. Why do you need such extreme agility and toughness up here? The answer is simple. It is the only way to escape your enemies. Up at this height, the plant eaters do not have many defenders, but danger waits from an unexpected direction, from the sky. When a lamb or a young goat drifts away from its mother by even a couple of yards, the golden eagle comes into play. These winged hunters learn to use the terrain with frightening effectiveness. They do not always try to kill the prey on the spot. A bird may not have the strength for that. Instead, they attack at enormous speed, trying to knock the animal off the cliff. One accurate blow of a powerful wing, and the victim goes down, smashing on the rocks below. And on the floor of the canyon, the eagle only has to wait and start its meal. But even in this vertical hell, there is room for life. It is amazing to watch a white-tailed ptarmigan run across the snowy slopes, hunting for rare blades of grass. Ptarmigan and goats often stay near each other. Why? It is a partnership that helps both. The birds have superb eyesight, and at the smallest sign of danger, they give a sharp call that serves as a warning signal. The wildlife of the high country in Montana is a constant balancing on the edge of life and death, where every creature depends on its neighbor. Let's drop down a little to where the old forests of lodgepole pine and Douglas fir begin. Here, in the shade of huge trees, a completely different atmosphere rules. This is the kingdom of the big predators, and the main one here, without a doubt, is the grizzly bear. But do not confuse it with the giant coastal bears of Alaska. The mountain grizzly here is a little smaller than its coastal brother, but it is incredibly lean, muscular, and adapted to life on steep slopes. The grizzly is a genuine wanderer. It has to keep climbing the mountains constantly in search of food. In summer, its diet is berries, roots, and the fat-rich seeds of the whitebark pine dug out of squirrel caches. But do not think this is a peaceful vegetarian. Its hunting instinct is developed beautifully. A bear can spend hours stalking a deer or an elk calf in the dense undergrowth, using the folds of the land as well as any special forces soldier. And its strength is such that one blow of a paw can break the spine of a full-grown elk. But the bear has serious competition: wolves. The Montana wolf is a smart, hard, and incredibly enduring hunter. Unlike the packs out on the open plains, the forest wolves here hunt in complex terrain. They drive their prey using the cliffs as natural dead ends. The bear and the wolf here are in a state of permanent low-grade war over resources. If a pack of wolves brings down a large elk, the huge, shaggy master of the forest can simply come to the sounds of the struggle and take the kill in the most shameless way possible. The wolves will snarl and circle, but against 700 pounds of pure muscle and claws, there is not much they can do. And while these titans sort things out between themselves, other eyes watch them from the trees. The Canada lynx. This is probably the most secretive resident of the Montana forest. Its presence is given away only by rare tracks in the snow. The lynx is the perfect loner. It does not get into open conflicts with wolves or bears. Its tactic is a sudden leap from a branch onto the back of an unsuspecting victim. The wildlife of the Rocky Mountain forest is built so that death here is always silent. You can walk along a trail and never notice that 30 feet from you, disguised against the color of the bark, a big cat sits watching you go by. And now forget the green forests and the snowy peaks. We move to the far east of Montana, into the Badlands country along the Missouri Breaks. You know, the first time you get here, it feels like you landed on another planet or somewhere in the barren canyons of the desert. Clay bluffs, sun-scorched ground, scattered juniper and stunted pine, and a suffocating heat. This is the dry country of Montana, and its wildlife can surprise even an experienced naturalist. Here, the rules of the game change completely. The main value is water, and the main survival strategy is knowing how to hide from the daytime heat. And in this burned world rules a creature whose very mention makes the local ranchers wince. The prairie rattlesnake, the most dangerous snake on these plains. It can reach a good length, and its body is packed with venom that destroys tissue and blood. The rattlesnake is a master of camouflage. Its grayish-brown scales blend perfectly with the dry ground and rock. It does not run at the approach of a person or a large animal. It goes still, and if you step on it, a lightning strike follows immediately. Its fangs are large enough to punch through thick leather boots. Its venom causes terrible swelling, and far from a hospital, out in this country, the chances without antivenom are slim. But the Badlands hide another incredible secret. For a long time, it was thought that this predator had vanished completely from the wildlife of Montana. I am talking about the black-footed ferret. This is an incredibly rare, strictly nocturnal animal, and one of the great ghost stories of North American wildlife. It lives on almost nothing but prairie dogs, and it was declared extinct not once, but twice. By the late 1970s, people believed there was not a single one left alive on Earth. Then, in 1981, a ranch dog in Wyoming killed one, and it turned out a tiny colony had survived. Every black-footed ferret alive today came from just 18 animals taken into captivity to save the species, and they are being released back onto the prairie dog towns of Montana, tracked and monitored one by one. Scientists spend years searching for signs of them with camera traps set among the dry canyons. At night, when the temperature drops and the badlands come alive, out of their burrows come the reptiles, and across the canyons carries an eerie sound, like a child crying. That is the coyotes. They are everywhere here. Coyotes are clever, bold opportunists. They gather in small groups and search every bush for carrion, small rodents, or lizards. The wildlife of the Montana Badlands is a hard world, where every inch of ground is soaked in the spirit of survival under extreme conditions.
We come back to the mountain canyons to talk about the main ghost and the main hope of the wildlife of the Rockies, an animal whose existence in Montana today balances between myth and reality. The mountain lion. Once, this magnificent cat was the absolute ruler of these lands. It hunted goats on the sheerest cliffs, chased deer through the forests, and had no natural enemies except man. Unlike a lot of the country, Montana never entirely lost its lions, but across huge stretches of the West, they were hunted and trapped out, and for decades they were wiped from whole regions. And yet, the wild has a way of surprising you and keeping its secrets. In recent years, camera traps in the most remote, hard-to-reach country have started to record something incredible. The lions are recolonizing ground they had vanished from.
These are lone animals, young males that make enormous journeys across the mountain ranges searching for new territory, some of them wandering hundreds of miles east onto the plains, into places that had no lions for 100 years. The mountain lion is the top of cat evolution on this continent. Its fur is thick, its feet are wide so it does not sink into the snow. It is the perfect silent killer. Its camouflage lets it dissolve among the gray rock and the autumn grass, so you could look right at one from 15 feet away and see nothing. The appearance of a lion in an ecosystem instantly changes the behavior of every other animal. The wildlife of Montana starts to rearrange itself. Deer that used to feel free in the timber now become more careful. Elk look harder into the shadows of the canyons. Even the wolves, feeling the presence of a stronger, more cunning competitor, try to stay away from its hunting trails. Alongside it, in the same forests, lives its smaller copy, the bobcat. It looks like an oversized house cat, but do not let that appearance fool you. It is a fierce little predator with powerful legs and a bad temper, hunting birds and rodents. But the recovery of the lion is an event of a completely different scale. It is a sign that the wild heart of Montana is still beating. And as long as this tawny ghost roams the Rocky Mountain cliffs, we have a chance to keep this astonishing primeval wildlife in all its harsh glory. Let's change the location completely. Leave the cold cliffs and drop down to the water. You know, Montana hides places inside it that do not fit the classic image of a mountain state at all. I am talking about the great river bottoms and the prairie potholes. Picture dense, nearly impassable thickets of willow and cottonwood standing in water, humidity so high it is hard to breathe, and the smell of rotting leaves and silt hitting your nose. These wetlands are a unique ecosystem that survived the Ice Age. Here, time seems to have stopped millions of years ago, and the wildlife is completely different. The rulers here are not bears and lions. This is the kingdom of water, and the ones who know how to deal with it. In spring and fall, millions of birds pour through. This is a crucial junction on the Great Migration route down the middle of the continent. And if you are lucky, you will see genuine giants, American white pelicans, enormous birds, clumsy on land, with a wingspan up to 9 feet. But the moment they are on the water, they turn into a perfect fishing machine. They do not dive for fish like other water birds. Pelicans hunt together, forming a half circle, beating the water with their wings and herding the schools of fish into the shallows, then simply scooping them up in their huge beak pouches. It is, I tell you, an unbelievably loud and primeval sight.
But if the birds are just passing through, there are those for whom these marshes are a permanent home. In the dense reeds hides the mink, a small but phenomenally aggressive predator. Unlike a lot of its forest relatives, the mink loves water. It even has small webs between its toes. It dives for fish, hunts frogs, and sometimes attacks birds bigger than itself. For waterfowl, it is an invisible death that comes from below. You just see a duck suddenly jerk and vanish under the surface. No noise, only the spreading rings. The nights in these bottoms are their own kind of test for your nerves. As soon as the sun sets, the marshes come alive so loudly it fills your ears. Thousands of chorus frogs and toads start their concert, creating a thick wall of background sound. And through this din suddenly breaks an eerie, piercing chorus. That is the coyotes. Their density here is off the scale. By day, they hide in the impassable brush, and at night, they come out to patrol the banks.
Coyotes here eat everything: dead fish washed up on the shore, careless rodents, and the eggs of nesting birds. They are smart, they work as a team, and they navigate this water maze perfectly. Life on these marshes is constant damp, biting insects, and an endless fight for calories in total humidity. Back to the mountains. We have talked a lot about the predators, about the ones who kill. But in the wild, no scrap of meat goes to waste. The death of one is always a buffet for others. And Montana has its own, very tightly organized guild of scavengers. If a bear or a wolf did not finish a kill, or a goat fell off a cliff into a canyon, the winged special forces come onto the scene, the sanitation crew of the skies. And believe me, their hierarchy is more complicated than it looks at first. The first to get the signal are the ravens. These incredibly smart birds constantly patrol the valleys. They are like scouts. Spotting a carcass, a raven begins to circle and make specific calls. And here is where it gets interesting. To these calls, from dozens of miles away, come the real heavyweights. Lift your head high. See those tiny dots against the clouds? Those are them. The first to arrive are the golden eagles and, in the country where they have returned, the largest flying bird on the continent, the California condor. Condors soar at enormous height, using the rising columns of warm air so they do not have to spend energy on flapping. Their eyesight is fantastic, and the condor is another creature that came back from the very edge. In 1987, there were 22 of them left alive on the entire planet, and every single one was taken into captivity because leaving them out there meant watching the species end. Everything flying today came from those 22 birds, and they are being released back into the wild across the West. A condor has a long, bald neck, and that is not a mistake of evolution, but a strict necessity. When you push your head deep into the insides of a dead elk or a cow, feathers would just get matted with blood. The scavengers work fast and rough. They tear the soft tissue, driving each other off with hisses and blows of powerful wings. Around a carcass, a real fight breaks out, brutal and merciless. This whole crew works like a perfect conveyor belt. In a matter of hours, nothing is left of a huge elk carcass. The mountains are clean again. It is brutal, maybe, but without them, Montana would quickly turn into a breeding ground for disease. Usually, when we picture predators, images of bears and wolves come to mind. But let's drop down to ground level, right under the feet of the giants, in the thick undergrowth of fern and fallen fir trunks, a completely different life is going full speed. It is a microcosm where its own no less brutal wars for survival play out. As soon as it gets dark in the forest, the night shift comes on. And the main heavyweight in this weight class is the American badger. Do not be fooled by its look. The badger is a tank. It has an incredibly dense body, short, powerful legs with enormous claws, and jaws that can crush bone. It is nearsighted, but its sense of smell and hearing work like radar. All night, this striped bulldozer works, tearing up the ground in search of ground squirrels, worms, and, if it is lucky, snakes. The badger is so sure of itself that even the coyotes tend to give it room. And here is one of the strangest partnerships in North American wildlife. The badger and the coyote often hunt together, not by accident and not rarely. The coyote covers the surface while the badger works the burrows, and a ground squirrel that bolts from one gets taken by the other. Both animals do better together than apart. The local red fox is smaller and more nimble, and it hunts mainly small rodents, relying on its famous listening trick and its high pounces into the grass. But the real drama plays out not on the ground, but a little higher, in the branches of the trees. Meet the pine marten. This is the perfect, flexible, lightning-fast killer. Its body is built so it can run along branches with the agility of a squirrel, making giant leaps from tree to tree. The marten hunts in complete darkness, and its main targets are birds sleeping in nests and small rodents. And here we meet one of the strangest and most secretive animals of the mountains, the northern flying squirrel. This is a funny little rodent with enormous black eyes, and it lives in the hollows of old trees, feeding on nuts, lichen, and fungi. The flying squirrel is a choice meal for the marten. The marten's hunt for one in the crowns of the trees is a deadly acrobatic act. The squirrel throws itself into the dark on thin branches, but the marten follows on its heels like a furry missile. One wrong move, one slipped claw, and the squirrel becomes dinner.
The wildlife of the lower forest knows no mercy. While the bear sleeps in its den, here in the shadows, every second, something is killing something else to make it to dawn. If you have ever tried to step into a mountain river in Montana, you know the feeling. The water is so ice cold, your legs cramp in seconds. These rivers are born high up in the glaciers. They race downhill at a furious speed, knocking you off your feet, rolling boulders, foaming over the rapids. It seems like living in a meat grinder like that would be impossible. But nature in Montana found a way to fill even these icy arteries. The main prize in these waters is the trout, beautiful, strong fish that manage to hold against the strongest current, waiting for insects to fall into the water. The trout is fast as lightning, but even it has enemies it cannot swim away from. The river otter. To see an otter in the wild is a rare piece of luck. It is extremely cautious.
But if you catch it hunting, you will be mesmerized. Its body is a perfect torpedo. Its dense fur keeps the ice water off its skin, and its powerful tail works as a rudder. The otter dives into the churning current and can chase trout right under the rocks, pulling them out with its sharp teeth. It plays with the river. For it, this is not a hostile force. It is home. And here is another underwater hunter you would least expect to meet in cold water. The common garter snake. Many people panic, mistaking it for something dangerous, but it is completely harmless to a person. For small fish and frogs, though, it is a real monster. It specializes in hunting near the water, and it can hold its breath for a long time, hiding among the rocks on the bottom and lunging from ambush at passing prey. But the most astonishing creature of the mountain rivers is a small, unremarkable little bird, the American dipper. They also call it the water ouzel. It sits, a gray little ball, on a rock in the middle of a roaring current. And then, just like that, it dives straight into the icy, churning water. The dipper runs along the bottom of the river, gripping the rocks with its claws, gathering the larvae of stream insects. Underwater, its feathers get coated in silvery bubbles of air, and it looks like a drop of mercury. How does this tiny bird not freeze, and how does the current not sweep it away? It is a puzzle that makes biologists scratch their heads every time. It is a perfect example of how life pushes its way into the most extreme and hostile conditions of the mountains. Winter in the mountains of Montana is not just a change of season. It is the great equalizer. When feet of snow fall at 10,000 feet and the temperature drops to critical lows, the usual order of life collapses. Animals that never crossed paths in summer suddenly find themselves locked onto the same ground. The winter blockade forces everyone to come down into the valleys, closer to the foothills, and that is where the real collision of worlds begins. The elk, the pride of the summer alpine meadows, are forced to move into the dense forests. Walking through deep snow with that kind of weight is a colossal drain of energy. The elk bunch into herds, trying to stamp out trails to reach dry grass and tree bark, and they know perfectly well that they are already being watched. Wolves. In winter, the gray hunters join into larger packs. A loner does not survive the winter, but a pack is a deadly machine. They use the snow as their main weapon. Wolves are lighter than an elk and do not sink into the drifts as badly. Their tactic is to drive the heavy elk into the deep snow, where it quickly wears out, sinking to its chest. It is an exhausting, brutal chase that can last for hours. At the same time, in the foothill country, another drama plays out.
Wild bison, the largest land animals on the continent, plow the frozen ground with their huge heads to reach the dry grass underneath. And the bison is another comeback story that fits this whole place. There were once tens of millions of them across this country. By the 1880s, there were fewer than 1,000 left alive, market hunters having shot them off the plains in about 2 decades. What saved the species was a handful of stubborn people who gathered the last survivors, and some of the most important of those early rescue efforts happened right here in Montana. Everything you see today came from that. A bull in winter uses that mountain of muscle like a plow, swinging its head side to side to clear the snow. It is incredibly aggressive when hungry, and its smell attracts not only wolves. Sometimes the winter is so hard that grizzly bears cannot settle into their dens or wake up in the middle of winter from hunger.
And such a bear is the absolute nightmare of the forest. It fears nothing. It can walk right up to a pack of wolves splitting a kill or attack a group of animals. A clash between a huge bull and a hungry bear in the winter forest is a battle of titans where fangs, claws, and pure fury all come into play. The snow around them soaks red, and the sounds of the fight carry through the whole canyon. The winter wildlife of Montana is constant stress. It is a time when there is no room for mistakes. You either find food today or you stay in the snow forever, becoming feed for the very ravens and eagles that are just waiting their turn. After the hard winter blockade, the mountains transform. The moment the snow melts at 8,000 or 9,000 feet, a real explosion begins. The alpine meadows of Montana get covered in such a carpet of wildflowers it hurts your eyes. But the animals here have no time to admire the scenery. They have only a couple of months to find a mate and raise their young before the new cold comes. Life here runs on fast forward. The strangest and most spectacular show at this time is put on by the sage grouse. This bird is a genuine icon of the West. At dawn, the males gather on open flats called leks. This is not just a mating dance, it is a gladiator tournament. The males inflate huge yellow air sacs on their chests, fan their spiky tails, drop their wings, and make a deep popping, bubbling sound you can hear from far off. The fights between them can be serious. Feathers fly in every direction, and the females sit off to the side, coldly picking the most aggressive and enduring male. And while the birds are busy with love, in the thick grass a perfect ambush is hiding. The prairie rattlesnake come up from the lower country. The snake lies motionless for hours, waiting for a careless vole or lizard. Its venom is strong and acts instantly. The mountains do not forgive carelessness. Not in a tourist, and not in a mouse. And on the sheerest cliffs of southern Montana, where the alpine meadows break into hard canyons, lives the bighorn sheep. It is different from the goats we already talked about. It has long, curling horns and a heavy, muscular body. Bighorns are incredible extremists. They graze on slopes so steep it is frightening to look at. Why take such a risk? The answer is always the same: predators. On ledges like that, no wolf and no lion can reach them, but the sky always hides a threat. Golden eagles, soaring over the meadows, constantly monitor the herds of sheep. The moment a lamb stumbles, the huge eagle drops like a stone. The alpine summer is short, and everyone uses their chance to survive to the maximum. And now let's look at the sky. Did you know that Montana holds one of the great bird migration corridors in the country? Along the front of the Rockies, the mountains funnel migrating raptors into a narrow band. In autumn, something happens here that blows the minds of birdwatchers. Picture a narrow strip of ground pressed between the mountain wall and the open plains. Large birds, especially raptors, do not like to fly over open ground with no lift, and they do not want to cross the cold high peaks, so they all funnel down these ridge lines into this narrow channel. The scale is insane. Over one season, tens of thousands of raptors pass along the Rocky Mountain front. The main players are hawks. These are medium-sized raptors that ride the thermals, the columns of warm air, spiraling upward in a huge invisible coil. The birds gain height without a single wing beat, then simply glide dozens of miles south, saving an enormous amount of energy. But migration is not a peaceful cruise. It is a brutal road of survival. Together with the hawks fly the heavyweights, the golden eagles.
They cut the air grimly and powerfully, sometimes trying to rob a smaller bird of its catch right in flight. Down low, over the reeds and fields, glide the northern harriers. Their flight is like a dance. They fly low, almost touching the grass, watching for rodents, tired small birds, or frogs. And among all this flying mass works the absolute speed record holder, the peregrine falcon. For it, this migration is like a conveyor belt of food. The peregrine climbs high above the main stream of birds, folds its wings, and dives at over 200 miles an hour. It strikes its prey with its rear talons in flight. The blow is so hard that a duck or a pigeon simply loses its head in the air. The Rocky Mountain front is not just a corridor. It is a huge moving ecosystem where the roles of predator and prey change every second until the whole feathered chaos disappears over the southern horizon. We come down from the skies and go underground.
In the mountains of Montana and along the front, the rock is cut through with caves, some of them among the largest cave systems in the region. And you know what? There, in absolute pitch darkness, where the temperature always holds steady, its own very strange life is going on. The wildlife of the underground is made of creatures that do not need the sun at all. The main residents of these dark halls are bats, in particular Townsend's big-eared bat. It got the name honestly, with ears more than an inch long on an animal that weighs less than half an ounce. It looks eerie, but it is a sophisticated natural sonar. The bat sends out an ultrasonic call and reads the returning echo with those enormous ears, which lets it fly in total darkness through winding caves without touching a single wall. When tens of thousands of bats pour out of a cave at sunset to hunt, it looks like thick black smoke seeping out of the ground. All night they will destroy tons of mosquitoes and moths, and by morning return to their cold vault, hanging upside down in dense pulsing clusters. But the bats at least fly out. There are those who have never seen the light. Deeper in, where it is always damp and water seeps down, live the true prisoners of the dark. For example, the blind cave beetles. Over the course of evolution, their eyes completely disappeared as useless. Instead, their antennas and legs became incredibly long and sensitive. They feel the rocks, reacting to the smallest vibration in the air and the humidity. They feed on fungus and the random organic matter that underground streams wash in. It is a closed, alien world, and it proves one simple thing. The wildlife of Montana is so adaptive that it can create life even where there should be only dead rock. We are used to nature being neatly divided. Wolves are canines, bobcats are cats. But now picture an animal that took a little from everything and turned out so strange that scientists scratched their heads over it for a long time. Well, in these mountains, that role belongs to the wolverine. It is a mix of a small bear, a dog, and a badger. The wolverine does not live in Montana in huge numbers. It is one of the rarest animals in the lower 48, and the Northern Rockies are one of its last real strongholds. Its feet are huge, like snowshoes, so it does not sink into the snow at all. When an elk sinks to its chest in the drifts and becomes helpless, the wolverine appears. It does not kill with one powerful bite like a lion. It simply starts to wear the animal down. The most astonishing thing about the wolverine is its jaws and teeth. They are built so it can chew through bones frozen to the hardness of stone, the ones the wolves and bears left behind. When all the other predators back off in the face of the killing cold, the wolverine feels right at home. Its fur does not frost over because the structure of the hair is unique. It repels water and ice. It is an animal made out of snow and fury, the perfect cleanup crew of the frozen wilderness. We keep looking at the big animals, bears, wolves, eagles. Let's shrink the scale. Let's get down on all fours and look at what happens right under the layer of fallen leaves and dry branches in the hot foothills. Spoiler: down there, a non-stop massacre is going on straight out of a horror movie. It is a world of creatures that wear their skeletons on the outside, a world of armored monsters. If you flip a large rock in the dry parts of Montana, there is a chance you run into a scorpion. It is small, yellowish-brown, and luckily its venom is not deadly to a healthy person. But for insects and small lizards, it is a killing machine. The scorpion is an ancient mechanism. It grabs its prey with its pincers and then strikes with its tail, injecting a neurotoxin.
It does not chew its food. It pours digestive juices over the prey and literally sucks out the resulting broth. But even the scorpion tries not to tangle with the giant centipede. Now there is something that really makes your blood run cold. This centipede is fast, aggressive, and completely fearless. It has no mercy. It hunts everything it can handle, from crickets to small mice. Its front legs have turned into powerful, venomous claws. The bite is incredibly painful, a burning like a hot iron. It throws itself at its prey, wraps it in its long body, and digs in. And now, picture a genuine giant crashing into this world of hard shells and venom. You hear a loud rustling in the leaves and see something that looks like a thick snake. But do not let its look scare you. It is not a snake. It is the rubber boa, one of the strangest snakes on the continent. A small, blunt, slow constrictor that is completely harmless to people and so gentle it will never bite.
It hunts by raiding the nests of small rodents. And there is the gopher snake, which people constantly mistake for a rattlesnake because it flattens its head and vibrates its tail in dry leaves to imitate one, though it has no venom at all. Among the roots of the trees patrol the ground beetles, large predatory insects with powerful jaws. They hunt slugs and caterpillars, cutting them like scissors. The micro-wildlife of Montana knows no concept of mercy. For every square inch of ground here, there is its own perfect predator. And walking through the forest, remember, right now under your boots, hundreds of deadly fights are playing out. Have you ever walked through a Montana forest and thought, strange, the forest is so huge and there are no animals to be seen at all? Where is everybody? Take my word for it, they are here, you just do not notice them. In the wild, the ability to be invisible is often valued far more than the size of your fangs or your running speed.
The wildlife of the Rockies took the art of camouflage to absolute perfection. Look at the ground. See that pile of dry leaves, mottled brown and gray? Come closer, and suddenly, right from under your boots, a bird bursts up with a rush. That is a grouse, or the American woodcock in the wetter bottoms. This bird looks like it was painted by a mad abstract artist using only shades of dirt and dead leaves. It sits on the ground motionless until the last moment. Its eyes are set so high and far back on its skull that it can see all the way around itself without turning its head. You think you are sneaking up on it, but it has been watching you for a long time. Lift your eyes to the branches of the bushes. There is the Pacific tree frog. This is a tiny tree frog with suction pads on its toes. On a normal day, it is bright green, the perfect color of a fresh leaf. It can sit on a broad leaf for hours, and a bird will fly past and notice nothing.
But put the tree frog on a dark tree trunk, and after a while, its skin will start to change color, going gray or brown. It is not a chameleon, it works more slowly, but for survival in the forest, it is enough. And even in the harsh cliffs where it seems there is nowhere to hide, there are phantoms. The short-horned lizard, a small, flattened reptile of the dry country. When it basks in the sun, its scales take on the ash-gray color of the rock it sits on. The moment the shadow of a bird of prey passes over it, the lizard just flattens itself against the ground, disappearing from view. And if a predator gets too close, it does one of the strangest things in the animal world, squirting a stream of its own blood from the corner of its eye, a spray that tastes so foul that a coyote or a fox recoils in disgust. The wild nature of Montana is constantly playing hide and seek with us, and if it seems to you that the forest is empty, it just means you got fooled. Thousands of eyes are watching your every step from the bushes, from under the ground, and from the tops of the trees.